Guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm playing some more Total War Warhammer. We're back in action with another online battle. I am taking the vampire counts up against an empire opponent. My forces are indeed led by the late great Heinrich Kemmler, who just got his buddy Krell recently, so we're in for a good time. My main line is 4 skeleton warriors with 4 crypt horrors for support. And we've got a Blood Knight and a Dire Pack on this flank. On this other flank we've got another Blood Knight and a Vampire Lady Lore of Shadows. I'll slow things down just a minute here while I talk about a few things. The Vampire Lady Lore of Shadows, I like to bring her without any spells just because she's a pretty tanky hero with the regeneration, 110 armor, decent combat stats, not great, but if you bring the Lore of Shadows, you can also get this Smoke and Mirrors, which is a map-wide 6% speed buff, which actually makes quite a bit of difference for your heavy cavalry, especially Blood Knights with, you know, their frenzy and everything. They go up to 86 speed, so very good there. As well, 1 extra skeleton spear on each flank, just for some anti-large support. And we do also have an additional Necromancer here, cheap down to just have the Lore Attribute and Invocation of Nehek, just for some extra healing. My opponent's forces, as you can see here, these Outriders are getting charged by the Dire Pack. He's got 2 Outriders with grenade launchers, which is a very interesting pick, not something you see very often at all. The Royal Altdorf Griffites, his main line is 5 Halberdiers with 2 Empire Captains mixed in for support. He's also got the Silver Bullets here. And his lord is Boris Todbringer, I believe, who is currently way out of position, landed, and getting ransacked by Blood Knights. Probably not where he wants to be. As well as 1 more Empire Captain up on the Pegasus for some additional air support. So let's kick things off. You can see here the Dire Pack getting tangled up with the Royal Altdorf Griffites. Definitely not where they want to be. They're getting beat down pretty hard, so I'm going to hit them with an Invocation of Nehek, try and keep them in the fight, and pull away and start to go after these Outriders with grenade launchers. Looks like they're stuck in combat right now. Over here, these Blood Knights are going to get tied up by this Empire Captain, and you can see with the Silver Bullets and the Outriders with grenade launchers, they're actually able to do a fair amount of damage to these Blood Knights, and yeah, you can see their HP is dropping considerably and not being microed very well by me, so definitely a good pick for my opponent. However, one problem he is going to face is his army is a little bit small, and as you can see, I've got a really wide formation where I can kind of wrap around him. And man, look at all the damage these Blood Knights are taking from those grenade launchers. It is quite impressive. However, a quick Invocation of Nehek pretty much negates most of that damage. Now I'm just going to pull away, and because these guys are fairly close to the line here, as well as not being microed, we're going to be able to catch them with the Blood Knights and deal with them fairly effectively. Over here, Silver Bullets opening up on these Blood Knights. They're not going to like that too much. You can also see the main line fight is starting to go down. We're going to get this beautiful front charge straight into the face of the Silver Bullets, doing an excellent amount of damage. Boris is going to try to come in, as well as the Royal Altdorf Griffites, so these Blood Knights are in a bit of trouble. Across the main line fight, you can see kind of getting wrapped up a bit. Kemmler's getting into a nice little position on this flank, with the other Necromancer supporting the other flank. And as you can see here, we are prepping for some fun stuff. Krell just got summoned there in the center, and he's going to be doing some nice infantry splash damage. And as you can see, a beautiful Wind of Death, just absolutely decimating my opponent's entire front line. And at that, several of the Halberd units immediately break in terror or run from the terror that Krell causes. So definitely tough for my opponent. You got to be careful. Kemmler can bring Wind of Death, and if it gets on a flank like that, you know, not something you would usually think about, but it can be absolutely devastating. So you can see here, Kemmler's dueling this Empire Captain. The Empire Captain's going to have a really bad day in this fight, getting tossed around, terrified. You can see Krell's already done a substantial amount of damage to him. Definitely not a fight that an Empire Captain would excel at. Over here, this Empire Captain is getting beat down by Crypt Horrors, and the Royal Altdorf Griffites are also bogged down in this fight with Spears, Crypt Horrors, Blood Knights, just a lot of armor piercing and anti-large and poison, and just lots of good stuff going on. So they're not having a good time. Boris is not quite at his healing cap. He's about 50% HP. But as you can see, most of the Empire forces are broken already. because of that beautiful Wind of Death. And another Invocation of the Heck just to keep these Blood Knights fighting a little bit longer here as we try and tie things up. You can see the Vampire Lady did get beat down a little bit by Boris, but she's fairly healthy. She's going to get back in for some more with the support of these Blood Knights and this Crypt Horror here. So we'll just kind of get a cinematic shot as things tie up. You can see the Vampire forces pursuing the routing men of the Empire. And that's going to be it. Nice quick Kemmler game, quick and dirty, beautiful Wind of Death. Thought you guys would appreciate the visuals on that one. So yeah, be wary of Kemmler and Wind of Death. You can see he got 166 kills on that. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And this Blood Knight did a ton of damage to Boris, as well as doing a ton of damage to the Royal Altdorf Griffites, catching those Outriders with grenade launchers. So definitely see how they got those 3 XP chevrons. That's some serious work, especially for a unit of that price. For my opponent, Outriders with grenade launchers are a fun pick, but I don't know if they're competitive. Regular Outriders might be good in certain circumstances against the Empire, but to make them work you really need the Nets of Amantok. So if I were my opponent, I would have cut the Empire Captain on a Griffin, or on a Pegasus, and brought instead Light Wizard with the Nets of Amantok. It would have made these guys much more effective, and they could have potentially actually cleaned up those Blood Knights. So definitely a fun game. That was quick, so I know you guys are probably wanting some more. We'll go ahead and look at another Kemmler replay here. This one, Kemmler is bringing the same build. This is my build I've been playing around with a little bit against the Empire as Kemmler. I don't know if it's the most competitive vampire build by any means, but with Krell, Kemmler becomes a lot more viable, I think. Krell's a very powerful, I guess, ability hero. I'm not sure, but he can definitely be a game changer, especially with the Terror, and he's pretty good duelist, great at dealing armor-piercing damage to infantry, or you know, he's good in a lot of situations. So I don't need to go over my build. It's exactly the same build as the last game. So we'll go ahead and skip straight to the Empire player. He is indeed led by Volkmar the Grim, not on his Pimp Wagon. Instead, he's opted to bring him on a Barded Warhorse. And this actually makes Volkmar a fairly decent combatant. He's got 80 armor. Not unbreakable, but he does have 100 leadership right now, so that's pretty serious. And he'll actually do attack animations, unlike on his chariot, where he pretty much just gets charge damage. In this guy's, he'll actually be able to get attack animations and deal some significant damage. For my opponent's army, if we can take a look here, he's got hidden in the back Royal Altdorf Griffites, as well as one more Demigryph Knights with halberds. He's also got the Silver Bullets, 1 unit of Free Company Militia, and the Sterling's Revenge Regiment of Renown as well. He's got the Tattersouls on one flank with the Flagellants on the other. The main line looks like it's a mixture of spears with 1 halberd. And he's also got a Grey Wizard, Shadow Wizard if you will. Looks like he's carrying Pit of Shades and the Enfeebling Foe. So looking to debuff and potentially get a nice blob. I can see where that would be useful, or at least you would think it would be useful against the vampires. Really, like you guys will hear me say often, I think the Nets of Amantok are a must-bring, especially against the vampires, if you want to capitalize on these ranged units. You can see already my opponent's flank is somewhat compromised by these Blood Knights, and because of my wide formation, I'm able to mostly match him across the line. We're going to watch these Tattersouls get punted around by these Crypt Horrors. Skeletons are getting in there, probably get smacked around, but that's fine. Kemmler's in here, and I wanted to talk about his... you can see some nice fire coming from my Empire opponent here. I wanted to talk about briefly the Chaos Tomb Blade, so if we put it in slow motion, and let's take a look at these Skeleton Warriors who are here fighting with Kemmler. They're actually benefiting from this Chaos Tomb Blade. So you guys can see +8 melee attack, resurrects dead combatants, replenishes hit points. So basically it gives a small melee attack buff, as well as giving, you know, a slight regeneration aura. So it's a pretty good bring, especially if you're going to be throwing Heinrich Kemmler into low-tier troops like Spearmen. It can definitely help support. You can see it looks like only those Skeleton Warriors are benefiting. Oh no, these Crypt Horrors are as well. So as you can see, this flank I was able to get through to these Free Company. Volkmar's in here dealing a ton of magic damage, just smacking various units around. Here you can see I'm a little bit caught here by the spears. Unfortunately I was not microing super well, but the Blood Knights will be able to pull away fairly effectively. Over here Kemmler is just continuing to fight. Not any good Winds of Death lined up at the moment. Maybe here. but I didn't want to risk too much impacting my own forces. So these Cryptors got a bit overzealous, got a bit out of position. They are on these missile units, though, tying them up, and they also force the Demigryph Knights to respond. They get put down pretty hard, but then we're immediately going to bring the Blood Knights, as well as the Dire Pack and the Shadow Sorcerer, and just completely surround and start to drag down the Royal Altdorf Gryphites. You can see Krell is now being summoned in this fight over here. The Demigryph Knights are also taking a substantial amount of damage, and the Silver Bullets are absolutely ravaged at this point. Nice Pit of Shades coming down, dealing a bit of damage to these Blood Knights here as they stand right in the pocket of that. But it's not going to be overly substantial, especially with the upgraded Invocation of the Heck dropped on this flank. So probably not the best use. You can see the Silver Bullets are routed off, getting a great charge here into these Free Company Militia, the Sterling's Revenge. They're going to take a ton of damage there. These Cryptors are crumbling here in the center, but they did a decent job of tying down the missile units while my other mobile units closed the gap. You can see Krell's in here smacking around some of these Demigryph Knights, using his great armor-piercing damage to help deal with them, and smacking them quite well, actually. The Shadow Sorcerer is going to try and help support this mainline engagement, but it's looking a little bit desperate for my opponent. The Enfeebling Foe being dropped on the Skeleton Spearman, not sure that's a really great pick at this point. He probably needs to be worrying more about these Blood Knights, and here the Demigryph Knights are pretty much gone. The Royal Altdorf Gryphites are routed at this point. Volkmar is pretty much alone. These Demigryph Knights are about to rout. He is fairly healthy, and he has put a fairly substantial beatdown on this Vampire Lady of Shadows, but my opponent, sensing his impending defeat, does admit a little bit early, prematurely maybe, but you know, most of his force was crumbled. He just mostly had these Sigmar Sons and a couple halberds barely hanging on, so definitely understand. Hope you guys enjoyed those two quick, dirty Kemmler casts. I definitely like Kemmler a lot more with Krell now, and in this build, I think it's fairly effective against the Empire. You guys will have to let me know what you think. But you've got the two Blood Knights to help protect against Goonage, as well as the Dire Pack and the Vampire Lady with the Shadows. And that Smoke and Mirrors just makes the Dire Pack and the Blood Knights that much faster, so they can chase down, you know, mounted skirmishers. They can really effectively outmaneuver and, you know, chase down other heavy cavalry. Cryptors are probably a little OP. They probably need a price increase to about 900 or 950. 800 is a little bit cheap for what they are. Yeah, you can see another XP Chevron in this Blood Knight, definitely getting the work done like you need them to. Over here, for my opponent, I'm not sure if this Chevron was applied at the beginning, but it's possible that they got that Chevron killing a bunch of Blood Knights and Cryptors. Definitely possible. But yeah, you can see my opponent's missile units just not able to effectively fire and, you know, use their ammunition and be cost effective because just didn't bring enough you know, infantry. And that's one of the big issues with bringing the Demigryph Knights. They're very powerful, but they're also very expensive, and especially when you combine them with some of the more elite infantry like Sigmar Sons, Tattersouls, and these elite missiles, you're going to have a fairly small army. And against the vampires, you may struggle with zombie summons, getting outflanked, and you can see in both of these games my opponents brought fairly small armies and ultimately, you know, paid the price for it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely enjoyed playing them. Good game to both my opponents, and hope to see you next time.